Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I'm going to do a review on a couple of video games that I really enjoy. That being River City Girls. I have the theme song stuck in my head as I'm talking. Oh god, it's so good. But River City Girls is an offshoot of Kunio-kun franchise, otherwise known as River City Ransom. It was kind of bouncing around back and forth from the developers Technos in the late 80s, early 90s, and WayForward, who published the Shantae games, brought it back, but they took a couple of characters and gave them the focus point and turned the game on its head. I watched footage of River City Girls 0, which they kind of released midway in between Girls 1 and 2, and it was fairly self-serious. It had some moments, but it was just kind of stiff. I mean, this was the mid-90s, of course, but, you know, beat-em-ups can range from really good to kind of stiff on occasion, and this, you know, from what I was watching, it just wasn't, like, all that exciting. But I figured doing the two main games makes the most sense back to back. And what I noticed, whether I was playing it or whether I was watching footage again, is there is a lot to like, and there are some things that I don't really like. But the good definitely outweighs the bad. And it's one of those like hidden gem franchises. And again, I'm mostly focusing on stuff like RPGs and visual novels. But when I knew that this was coming out and I saw footage of it, I was floored. Because what this really does is it takes like that anime aesthetic and really just glosses it all over a beat 'em up. You know, because I played stuff like Streets of Rage and a little bit of Golden Axe and other games like that way back. I played like the Spider-Man SNES games, you know, so I do have some familiarity with beat-em-ups, and what sets this one apart is just the style of it. The concepts of what the characters are doing, why they're doing what they're doing, and you add in all of the anime punch that I'm familiar with, and you've got a just lovely video game that lasts, you know, 5 to 6 to 10 hours. You know, both games, you'll get like 20 hours out of it, and I'm going to talk about both of them because I want to. And whenever I get around to playing this for YouTube, trust me, I will. I want to play River City Girls 2 on Twitch. Now that I'm thinking about it, you know, I'm just excited. This is like one of those franchises that's under the radar for me, but I'm excited for all the same, and I can't wait for another one if they do make one, which I'm imagining they will. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, and good on them. Both Shantae and River City Girls, so WayForward knows what it's doing. But anyway, as far as what River City Girls is, we have two main characters. We have Misako and Kyoko. They were, like I said, in what ended up becoming River City 0, but it was a Kunio and Ricky based game. Those are the main characters, Kunio and Ricky. You know, kind of an offshoot, kind of a pseudo sequel to Double Dragon, but not really. Like, they were their own separate franchises, but they were kind of in the same universe in a way. But again, the continuity is all over the place, so bear that in mind. But as far as River City Girls goes, Misako and Kyoko are delinquents in River City High. One of them doesn't even go there. Kyoko goes to a different school, but hangs out all the time just cuz. But Misako is voiced by Kaylee Mills, who I didn't know at the time until I looked it up, was actually Union from Konosuba. It's like, you listen to what she's like as Misako, and it's like, it doesn't add up at all. Speaking of stuff I'm going to review the Konosuba Megumin spin-off someday. But yeah, so Misako is just brash, pissed off, really like determined to do stuff, and will beat the shit out of people with like wrestling moves, hard-edged moves, rolling punches, hit people with her heart-shaped book bag, stuff like that, and pick them up and just wallop them, power bomb them into the floor and whatnot. So yes, she can do the Stone Cold Stunner. She's awesome. She's joined by her friend Kyoko, voiced by Kira Buckland, who's 2B in Nier, and God knows how many other things. Loxia in Ys 8. Pretty much tons of games. The cool thing for me, and again, this is another like good thing for me, was the casting here. The dub casting was done by Christina V, who helped do some of the songs in this, and some of the advertising. So she did some of the characters in this game. She helped cast them. So again, anybody who's familiar with like the last 5 or 10 years of like anime and like these types of games will fit right in. You know, the Persona, Yakuza, Tales set of voice actors. So it really adds to the, oh, hey, I'm familiar with these people. This is awesome, you know, because it's like, oh, this is a new franchise. What do we do with it? Well, let's just throw them in. But as an added aside, you don't just have the anime and video game crew. You have, you know, YouTubers on occasion. I think, what was his name? Nate Wants to Battle did the ending theme or helped with the ending theme. Aaron and Danny from the Game Grumps did Billy Lee and this is Jimmy. They work his dojos and get you new moves, but you can totally hear like their voices because they totally sound like the Game Grumps do. And just hearing like Aaron Hansen go, I want my brother, you know, or, you know, because he's just erratic, and then Danny's just like, oh, hello, how are you? You know, just, this is so fucking good. And then I think it was Jacksepticeye does this like just gross like louse person that lives in the garbage called Godai, and his whole thing is to give you requests. So you just hear this like Scottish or Irish accent coming from this weird grumbly disgusting guy, and Misako and Kyoko are just looking at him like, what the fuck, get away from me, you smell, you know, shit like that. But the idea is that Ricky and Kunio, who in this storyline are supposedly like boyfriend and girlfriend with Misako and Kyoko, have been kidnapped. By whom? We don't know. But Misako and Kyoko just break out of school because they do. And they just beat up students. They beat up principals, not really teachers. You get a lot of people that stand around, like they dot stuff around the map. So while you're fighting, you go into different sections. The game is separated into like 10 or 15 screens per area, and you're fighting, you know, palette swaps here and there, and you're doing beat 'em up stuff. You're just smacking the shit out of dudes over and over and over. Punches, kicks. Kyoko specifically can do like volleyball kind of maneuvers, like bump, set, spike, but she can also do like a fucking dab. So she freaking dabs and the enemies just fly off the screen. So she's a lot more bouncy. Misako is just straightforward, just will smack the shit out of you. So it works both ways. And I'll talk about the other characters from River City 2 when we get to that. But they go around to different areas, keep fighting people. They fight bullies that are like big ass fucking hall monitors. They fight some weird guy named Yamada, who's this dark sorcerer wannabe loser punk on a roof somewhere. Hibari, who's this weird fashion designer, looks like a fucking spider. A Bobo, who's a character, I think in Double Dragon, or an offshoot of that, just a big bald fuck. Then they fight. I think the best boss fight, though, is Noise, this rocker, like punk rock lady. And most of her fight actually is, if you can picture this, you're in the arena and you're fighting her, and it's like a Guitar Hero thing, but the Guitar Hero track, you know, you've got these little spaces that you can jump to. If you hit the Guitar Hero track, you explode and you take damage. It's as awesome as it sounds. And then when she's done with that and you can actually hit her, she'll like throw her guitar like a fucking spinning axe, and her fans, like groupies, will come and try and smack you. It's glorious. All while like Noise is singing a theme, you know, which is great. And then the final boss is Sabuko. And this is a neat treat for me. Sabuko is this like crime boss lady, So complete Yakuza thing. You go like 20 minutes through this fucking tower and you're beating up Yakuza members, beating them up with like yo-yos, garbage bags. I love the yo-yo. It's a nice like thwack. Baseball bats, garbage cans, benches, all sorts of fun junk. And you get through the tower, and then you fight Sabako, who's ridiculously powerful. And I found out she was voiced by Xanthi Win, which was just fun. Haru from Persona 5. And it was just like, oh, she gets to be a Yakuza lady. Yay, she doesn't have to be the soft-spoken happy girl for a change. It's cool. So you beat Sabako, and then you realize, okay, that's one ending. But there was a criticism about the ending. So they kick her out of the window, like you do, and they're falling, and they find Ricky and Kunio taking like a onsen bath or something. And in one ending, what happens is these two girls, like Hasabe and Mami, who've been kind of pestering Misako, whatever, for like weeks, because every so often you'll find them out in the street and you'll talk to them, and they're just like bitchy, catty, mean girls, and they're like, Rick and Kunio's like, well, I wonder what Hasabe and Mami are doing. And then they think that like Misako and Kyoko are weird stalkers. But there's a different ending you can do. If you play the game again, you find these statues all over town, and then you collect them, and then you fight Hasabe and Mami as the final bosses in that ending. What ended up happening was the same ending would play, and people caught on to it, so they had to patch in a different ending, where like Ricky and Kunio would go with Misako and Kyoko, but the gag that they do is like, you weren't even there. Like, the idea was you were only girlfriend and whatever in one fucking game. It was like this meta humor. So she's like, you were within one game. It wasn't even released outside of Japan, you fucking idiots. It's like, it's just glorious. The meta humor, the self-referential stuff is great, because you see all these like shopkeepers and whatever from Double Dragon and River City and whatever. Some characters you'd even get in River City 2. But alongside, doing all of the fun junk in River City, you get like accessory shops. You can buy food. So you can buy food and buff your stats a little bit. You get these accessories that don't do a whole lot, but you get these buffs to it. And you get a ton of different things. You can buff your attacks. My favorite was certain weapons avoid breaking, because weapons have weapon durability in this, which makes more sense in, say, this game than it would in like Breath of the Wild, right? I had to throw that dig in there because fuck you, Breath of the Wild. Anyway, but yeah, weapon durability and a beat 'em up. That's fine. But hey, I was able to, my method later in the game was I'd get the manual to avoid breaking weapons, and I'd take my yo-yo, which had some range on it, and just thwack dudes from a distance. Other things you could do is like get a fatal attack 1% of the time, buff your HP when you kill a dude, make recruits do, you can like beat up some guys, and then there's like one remaining, and they'll beg for their lives. If you take them out, they'll do these like weird quips like, that hurt. I'm like, oh, it's like, that was mean. It's like, no, my makeup's running, shit like that. The funniest one is, do people even read these? But if you beg them off and you like hug them or whatever, they will be your recruits, and they will come in and do damage, a couple of times doing different things. A couple people will kick people. Some of them will throw sand at people and blind them, just different effects for different characters. So there's kind of a collectathon idea there. One of my favorite monsters is like Terminator, because every time you hit the Terminator dudes, they do the fake Arnold impression, the blow, those fucking screams. It's just hilarious, because nobody the Arnold impression is great. But yeah, so River City Girls is just great, and then they released another one, and they added characters in it. So Now you have Ricky and Kunio, who, you could use as characters in the first game if you beat it. Ricky is more straightforward. It kind of does a lot of... I forget. I think Ricky's the one with the white shirt, but basically like white shirt guy. No, Kunio. Kunio's like the more straightforward, happy-go-lucky kind of, I will bounce around and I will have a lot of fun. I will kick people's faces in, all that kind of stuff. Ricky is a lot more like, I'm too cool for this school shit. I'm too cool for you, kind of vibe. I think he hits people with his jacket. Like he'll like spin around and then he'll just whap people with his jacket, like almost like one of those wet towel kinds of things, and like it does damage. I don't fucking know, but he does these like weird darkness attacks too, which is kind of unique. So they buff their skills, and then you get to actually use them in the second game right from the bat. So you unlock them in the first game, but they're unlocked immediately from the second. So now you have all 4 to use at the beginning. What happens is like a day. Don't ask me how. Like a day after the thing, Sabuko is waking up in the trash, and her brother, Ken, who is in the River City Zero game, shows up and basically browbeats her, saying, "You got your ass handed to you by some girls. Let's talk to Dad." And their dad, Sabu, just punches his way out of the jail because mob boss does that. I don't fucking know. So nobody stops him. He just walks out, punches dudes. So you got to do all the rigmarole again. But Misako and Kyoko are basically forced out of River City. They hide out for a couple months. It was kind of funny that like Kyoko's mom got sick of them sitting and lousing around on the couch playing video games for months and said, "Hey, could you go outside? There's a new video game going out." And then they have to fight all over again. So that was their excuse for starting them back at level 1, is they just sat on their ass being couch potatoes. So essentially female Beavis and Butthead. It's great. This time they're supposed to fight different bosses and get through Ken and all that. So they deal with finding other bosses and getting their emblems to get into San Wakai Tower, which they got in the first game, but they have to find their way underground. But the bosses this time kind of range from new bosses to people you can ally with later on in the game. So the first boss is Ken. He has goons and he has some karate moves and shit. There is... Oh yeah, it's Proby, who is one of the characters that you can unlock. She's in a just a race to try and find Ken, but Kyoko and Misako keep blowing shit up and beating up goons, so he keeps running away. So she fights them, and she's like a breakdancer / YouTube influencer kind of person. So she does a lot of like twisty kicks and, breakdancing moves and all kinds of wonky fun shit. She was actually in an offshoot game called River City Underground, I believe. And they got the same voice actor to do that one. I forget if it was voice acted, but it's the same character from that game brought back. So after you get done with her, you can unlock her. The bosses here, I think, are better than in the first game because they are just unique boss fights. One I remember was Suiko, who was this social media just aficionado, just those people on their phones all the time that speak that language, that know the influencer shit in and out. And like, she would keep eating food. She would run around the arena eating food and, guarding against damage until you kick the shit out of her. Kick the shit out of her enough, she'd actually transport you into her phone and try to damage you by like, those like platformer sections where you have this wall of death that's coming after you. So you don't die. That was my fear. You don't die from it, but you'll take damage from it. Or you'll make the fight harder if you have to run and scale these like old school like platforms and junk and run away and do just avoid basically being de-rezzed. And it scares the shit out of me. Because I remember, like, in games like that where they just have the wall of doom and you deal with the wall of doom and you die and it sucks, But Suiko is interesting. Later on, you recruit Marion, who is, I think, the best character. She was the damsel in distress in one of the Double Dragon games. And she was also a shopkeeper in the first game. And the thing to know about her is legendary abs. Because holy fuck, does she have legendary abs. So she's got like the track jacket and sports bra, long hair, like these cool knuckles, like golden knuckle things. But goddamn, those abs are great. And voiced by Erica Harlocker and from Persona 5, always a good thing in my book. And yeah, you recruit her after a while and find out she was trying to chase another person in Ken and Sabu's gang, only to get brainwashed. Don't ask me how. It's weird. But brainwashing in a game like this, just roll with it. It's dumb. But it leads to a boss fight. You recruit her, and then she can join your party. So now you've got 6 people that you can choose from, and you can switch out at any time. And that's one of the benefits of this. So you can work with one character, Misako or Kyoko or whomever, or you can switch out and change it up if you'd like. Marion says that another character has another of those emblems. You find this witch. Just go with it. This witch that's like this like macabre necromancer, fortune teller, brainwashy weirdo bitch named Blair, and she has her own weird ass boss fight that has stuff to do with tarot cards. 'Cause reasons. So you fight her, find out she was doing it for money, fight another guy on this fucking cooking show. This guy named Primo, who is lacing food with like brainwashing additives or some shit, so they become Yakuza soldiers, like the teenagers become Yakuza members. The aside in this boss fight is like, it's almost like a reality show where like when you take his health bar down, like Misako would just stand there and like, well, his recipes were really kind of cool, and I was honestly surprised that Primo would doing so. And then after a while, you get back to it, Primo would be like setting stuff on fire. He'd be jumping on this giant like applause screen in front of the crowd and just hanging from it and tossing peppers and grenades at you. It was just, it's so fucking good. So you fight Sabuko and Ken again. They got a helicopter, because of course they do. You run into Senwaikai Tower, beat up Sabu, who's honestly kind of boring as final bosses go, but like the ending of this game is just hilariously stupid and over the top, much like the first one. So it's just like, it's so good. It's good. But yeah, you fight them, and again, every character has their own kind of different feel. Misako is just straightforward and brutal. Kyoko can do kind of nice and quick moves and screw around with things. Kunio and Ricky do their own type of maneuvers. Provi does the breakdancing stuff, and Marion can do a lot of like grappling and throws and wrestling moves on her own and just beats the fucking hell out of people. Legendary acts. But yeah, all the cool stuff of all the fighting and all the weapons and all the cool stuff, just the characters, just wandering around River City and finding characters, whether it's Godai being a creep or other characters. Sometimes you'll see cameos from the first game. Sometimes you'll meet characters that don't mean anything. Sometimes like one of the coolest things was a character that's like friendly to them, but isn't like a main character. Just wants to hang out and be their friend, but they keep blowing her off. So they're just like, but I want to hang out with you guys. I'm like, pick better friends. because there's also some other characters who might be like main characters eventually, like this like roller skating or basketball lady who keeps saying she's busy because she's training a bunch of idiots. So you keep thinking that she's gonna join the party, but she won't. But it's fine because you get people like Marion and Proby, so it's not really a problem. But just little interactions here and there, and you get to see like, oh, these characters know each other, and you feel that, oh, they're students in high school, and they sound stupid, and they sound like idiots, and they're just having fun. The bosses, they all have their own mentalities too. Some are just straightforward and boring, some are just over the top and weird, Hibari, for example. A Bobo is just there as a thug, I'm a Bobo, but it's laced with this like just energy, and it transcends to the music. Megan McDuffie does a great job of, in both games, doing like EDM pop and synth stuff. And sometimes she'll even sing the themes herself. So, like, a good 30% of the soundtrack has her, well, I don't know, maybe not 30, but maybe 15 to 20% of it is, voiced songs. Sometimes she'll do the boss themes too. But it just adds a layer of, okay, I'm beating these people up, I'm making progress, I'm doing all this fun stuff, and you're just driven to do it. Like, you hear that opening theme, from River City Girls, and it's just like, God damn, it's so good. And the second theme has Christina V in it singing as well, which is really neat. So they do a duet, which is even better. There's just so much to like. The only thing I would ever say would be a problem, I think, would be the original ending, which they fixed. Some versions have had glitches. I remember watching a YouTube playthrough of the first one, and on Switch, there were constant crashes. Not like every single screen, but, every hour or something, it would become a thing you just couldn't predict, so it became a problem. I don't recall that being a thing when I played it on a different platform, so they probably fixed it. They've also said that the Switch version was like locked in 30 FPS or something, or just had a downgrade, and they had to spend months trying to fix the updates in River City 2. So again, it's not things I would notice. I probably wouldn't play the Switch version because I have the PS4 and PS5 because they're also on those platforms. But again, it's not consistent. So bear that in mind. The other thing I would mention is a lot of the interstitial stuff to get you from boss fights and going around the city and beating up random dudes is a lot of fuss work. Collecting stuff, like going into a forest and collecting a pepper to destroy a wall of thorns. Going to a place and collecting money to bribe a dude or to find answers to, hey, what are noises something, something, something? 3 things to prove that you're a noise super fan. Little stupid collect-a-thon things. It forces you to kind of go around the world and check more stuff out, but it's also like busy work. It doesn't feel right in a beat-em-up game to have you looking for switches and finding stuff and beating dudes up. I'm more akin to just beat the shit out of dudes and keep going. But it does add a little bit extra time to it, and you do get new moves and new things you get to do, so it doesn't feel like a waste. And again, just some of the stuff you get to do in this game is just hilarious. I didn't even speak on all the weapons. I remembered a couple of weapons I didn't even remember. You get in an arcade, you get to find a fake lightsaber. You hit them with a lightsaber, and they jump up into the air. You can hit them with a guitar. Later on, you're in the riverfront on a riverbank, and you find the like gigantic fucking swordfish. This is this big fat fish, and you pick it up and you just whack people with the fish. This game does not take itself seriously, and it's not meant to. They have hit on, these are those old school 80s and 90s beat 'em ups with a fresh coat of paint, with a fresh coat of laissez-faire, dickish attitude. And if you just want a good 5 to 10 hours, 10 to 20 if you do both games, which I'd highly suggest, of I just want to kick some people's asses. I just want to unleash some frustration. I want to de-stress. I want to have fun. These games are fun. They evoke the old school beat 'em up mentality that we, did as, kids or teenagers back in those 80s and 90s days. Those were kings of the arcade, those beat 'em up games. The early, SNES, Genesis era stuff. It evokes that sort of thing, and it does it with a lot of love and care. But again, if you're looking at it from a perspective of, say, hey, I only play RPGs, based on, interest in my channel or whatever, this still hits that itch because, as I've said, it's drenched in anime and Japanese aesthetic. So, unlike other games which are focusing on, like, medieval fantasy or urban fighting and whatever, this has a lot of color. This has a lot of love to it. This has a lot of, like, crazy Japaneseness to it, but it's not so up in your face either that it's annoying. It's just, hey, I want to beat up some stuff. I want to do fun stuff, and I want to do it for a few hours and be done. This is a great franchise. It's very under the radar, which is a bit of a shame, but I can understand it. WayForward and, say, limited run games, kind of prioritize the smaller scale games, but they do it with enough love that I think people who play them understand that they're good. So if you haven't checked this series out, obviously, I would recommend it. I'm going to play it on YouTube someday. I'm definitely going to play it on Twitch later this year. So I know that I'm interested in this franchise, and I want them to keep going. It's amazing, and I can't wait for more. But that'll do it for me, and let's see what we've got coming up soon as far as reviews. Next week will be Quintessential Quintuplets. Once again, I've already recorded that one, so I'm not even worried about that one. I just have to do it. Sega Genesis Grab Bag. I picked about 15 or 20 games that I'm familiar with from Sega Genesis or ports to the Genesis that I, just talk about rapid fire. I was talking about Streets of Rage before. Stuff like Road Rash, Mutant League Football, all that fun junk. Next up after that is A Lull in the Sea. And that one really struck me. It's a very slow-going romance / kind of not sci-fi drama, but fantasy-ish drama. It's really, really good. It came out about 10 years ago, but I only saw it recently, and I was floored. It's one of the best things I've seen recently. Also recorded was the Kingdom Hearts revisit with LeighClipse. We finished our playthrough of Kingdom Hearts earlier this month, and I'm putting that where it's going to be in October. Mid-October is going to be Dragon Quest XI. I don't know if I'm going to finish the playthrough of Dragon Quest by then. Odds are I probably won't, but I'm going to try. But Dragon Quest XI in mid-October. The next anime after that will be Ancient Magus Bride. And speaking of good shows, the second season just finished a season ago, and goddamn, it was so good. There's so much you could do with that franchise, and they're just layering so much more stuff into that Ancient Magus Bride stuff. And they've had like a big season, then they had a couple of OVAs, then they have a new season that they've already done a few episodes into on that season. So it's just a big franchise, under the radar, but mystical magic and all fun cool stuff like fake creatures and stuff. It's really neat. So talking about that will be really nice. And after that will be a Halloween anime. I don't know which one yet, but I have a poll up on that one. So there's 5 like spooky anime choices for Halloween to go into. But that'll do it for me today. And I hope you enjoyed this video and will check out River City Girls on your own. I'd highly recommend it. But that'll do it for me. And I'll see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.